Good morning. This is the Innovation Conversation. How you doing, Tom?
Good, Kevin,
Good to see
despite
you.
our Mets performance of late,
I
but
just,
we're not going to go there.
it was just too depressing. Oh, oh, it just goes to show you, just money does not buy everything. And in this case, what a $350 million payroll has amounted to a team that is just barely mediocre.
Barely.
Um,
Yeah.
oh no, Sunday, the bottom of the eighth inning on Sunday was one of the worst half innings of baseball I've ever seen. It was just, yeah, I don't even, we can't even go there. Anyway, so
Yeah.
before we talk about a considerably less painful subject, which is the Amazon FTC suit, I do want to ask you a little bit about retail media networks. I was interested since last we talked by the fact that Albertsons has suggested is promoting the idea of creating a standardized framework for all retail media networks, basically saying that they've become complex. It's a complex and costly ecosystem. Nobody's doing everything the same way, and therefore there's tons of inefficiencies. And if they could develop things like basic product characteristics, performance measurements, third-party verification for that everybody would adhere to, it would make sense for everybody who's in the retail media network business. On the face of it, that strikes me as being smart, although I'm not sure that I would have thought Albertsons would be necessarily the company that would be the ones to set the standard, as opposed to, let's say, a Nielsen or some kind of a third party that could kind of impose order on an orderless society.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. It's definitely been a relatively unstructured space as it's evolved, and it's been evolving for since Amazon started doing it in the mid late 2000. So call it a solid 15-year-old um, industry. But you find the industry now between Amazon's 35-ish billion and Walmart's 2.5-ish billion out of what McKinsey calls a 40 or $41 billion industry. You got 90% of the industry plus, between those two
Right.
retailers. And I actually think that, those two retailers, again, being the holders of the retail media inventory, the ones that are they're the recipients of the retail media spend, right? They're the interface with the customer. I think they've developed pretty good rigor, in their own worlds around those various definitions. And there's a whole ecosystem of partners out there, tech partners that'll help you place your ads in a retail media network. Those tech companies are expanding the types of retail media that they can help you place and measure. I think the more advanced platforms like Amazon and Walmart, and even Instacart and Kroger and other, they have APIs and other capabilities that enable you to connect. So I don't know. I get it. I think that their uniformity is helpful. I think that it's going to be hard for a small, with a high potential, but a current player that small in the market to be able to step up and declare that. Yeah, I think you're right. If there was a dominant measurement company out there, and I know there are some, but if there was one that could step up and become that default standard and be agreed to by Amazon and Walmart, basically, you probably have a chance there of getting that uniformity. Or if you flipped it around and on the advertiser side, right, where the budgets are. So if you had, maybe some of the top CPG and food companies come together from their side and said, we need some uniformity and here's what we would like it to look like. That might have more of a chance.
Yeah.
Because they hold the budget.
Yeah. Yeah. If everybody else on the planet, or who's doing retail media networks, could agree to the same standard, and if Amazon and Walmart say, no, we don't want to play the game by your rules, it's not going to matter, because the advertisers are going to are going to go where the customers are at this point.
Yeah, the Amazon the advertisers are going to go where the customers are. I do think that there is a real desire among advertisers to spread their bets beyond Amazon and Walmart. I mean, Amazon and Walmart are just given their scale and their effectiveness, they're going to command massive portions of the share, and they should. But there's a bunch of other places that customers are shopping, interacting with products, and are valuable, are valuable advertising points. Both the asset and the instance, the occasion. So I think brands want to spread their bets wider. Frankly, now that I think about it, kind of on the fly here, if you, all of these smaller guys, right? So even if you're 1 or 2%, you might be massive, but if you're 1 or 2% of the market, or all of these retailers that might amount to 10, 15, and ultimately 20% of the market, I guess if they could have standards, that would help quite a bit from the manufacturer side, right? Not having to adjust a standard for this $2 billion retailer and this $4 billion retailer, right? Where I'm spending, 0.5% of my budget, 1% of my budget. So maybe it would make sense for some of the smaller ones to have kind of a consortium of, hey, here's how we're going to do it.
Yeah.
That could help. But I don't think you're going to get the big of the bigs to necessarily conform with it.
Yeah.
They're going to do what they're going to do.
I think I still remain, more skeptical about the whole retail media network ecosystem, I think, than you are. Just because I look at it and in some ways, maybe cash grab is a little bit harsh. But to me, that there, it's for all these companies, and I totally get it. It's all about creating alternate revenue streams. But there's not as much conversation, at least that I'm aware of, about integrating it into their promotional activities. Thinking about it in terms of a broader marketing sense. Thinking about it in terms of how is this going to help the consumer? How is this going to help the shopper, as opposed to driving more money to our bottom line?
Yeah, I mean, I think for sure, this has absolutely started as a money grab. I mean, I know from back at Amazon, when we effectively started the ad business, and we started generating and producing ad placements in our shopping experience. The reason we did it at first was because we needed more of what we considered our fair share of not only trade, but of brand advertising and marketing dollars, right? We didn't have a weekly ad where we could charge co-op advertising. Right. We didn't have end caps in the store that we could charge for. We didn't have, shelf talkers or other, media on the floor, or any, any of that stuff. Like, we didn't have that. So we had to figure out a way to get at those manufacturer dollars, because we needed those to offset the cost of our business. We were in a loss situation, and that was the way to reduce the loss. So, I think a lot of these, retailers that are getting into it and have gotten into it over the years, it's absolutely, a money grab. But well, I would counter that to say, though, they do have some of the most valuable advertising real estate.
Okay.
Right. If you can do it in the right way, if you can be as contextual as possible to your shopper to help them make a better purchase decision, or to help them discover products that they may not have gone out to discover on their own, but because your data has given you enough insight about that customer that you can present them with some compelling options, that can add to their experience. That can be great. I think adding, capabilities, anything you can do to help the shopper shop better, whether it's, list building capabilities, auto replenishment, those types of things that will help customers shop, help customers be better and faster at shopping. If you can integrate advertising into that in a contextual and tasteful way, that's great. Like, that's really, really good. I think really positive. You can't take that too far, or you'll completely blow up, you'll ruin your shopping experience. You'll blow up the trust of your customers. So there's a fine line there for sure.
Well, and I think there's a lot of retailers out there, even if they had list building capabilities and they had auto replen, and then they had a retail media network, they'd be building them in silos as opposed to integrate.
No doubt.
Right.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I mean, you talk about Amazon having started it, 15 plus years ago. I think there's a lot of people, and I'd be one of them, who would argue that in some ways the tail has started wagging the dog. That there's so much advertising on the Walmart page, on the Amazon page,
Yep.
is that I can't get to what I mean. I could say I can go in there and I say I want this brand cup in this size in this color, right? So I've been very specific about what I'm looking for. And I might have to scroll through, I don't know, 8, 10, 12 different items to get to this. If I say I want this, I don't want a Yeti. Don't try and sell me a Yeti because Yeti has sold you advertising dollars. Now,
Yeah. Although Yeti will definitely be in the first couple of rows,
right?
advertising against that, as will some brand names you've never heard of,
Which are
that are
maybe.
from an
Right.
overseas manufacturer that is building products that meet a spec that they've mined from data in the platform. And so you've gotten some name that you can't even, I mean, certainly not a recognizable brand
Right.
name, some combination of letters and vowels, and that'll be up ahead of what you're looking for, or consonants and vowels. Yeah, I totally agree that Amazon has gone too far in their current shopping experience. Now, is it impacting them yet? Don't know. You know, I guess I'm sure they are watching it closely to determine that balance of the advertising revenue, the return on the advertising revenue, and the overall yield off of each shopping session that comes in. Right, customer comes into the site. Amazon expects to yield a certain value off of that shopper before they leave the site, and so as long as they're getting that and that's growing, Amazon's probably feeling okay about it. I think if it goes too far, and Amazon can measure it's going too far, then hopefully you'd see them pull back. But I think I definitely agree that, and I've heard people talking about it. And I've seen commentary online about people just think Amazon's gone too far.
Yeah. And it depends on what you're measuring, right? I mean, I've joked on Morning Newsbeat that sometimes it seems like Andy Jassy is checking every couch to see if he can find any loose change. But if that's what they're measuring, is how much loose change are we finding, right? That we can wear places where we can make a little bit more money here, a little bit more money there, and they're not measuring. Again, not to personalize it, it's not all about me, but of course, it's always all about me. The fact that I've been an Amazon customer since 1996. I'm an off the chart subscribe and save user. I'm an enormous Prime member. I shop at Whole Foods. I mean, in some ways, I ought to be. Demographically, I'm not, because I'm an old white guy, but I'm a good customer for them. And if they're not measuring in some way, shape, or form how their various activities are how I perceive them, then I think they're making a mistake. Now they might say, yeah, you might have a negative perception, but you haven't canceled your Prime subscription. We'll get to that in a second. Right? Because we're segueing now into Amazon. So maybe it doesn't really matter. But at some point it will matter, right? I mean, there's always a a point, right, where a tipping point where you just say, I'm done. You guys have gone too far. All right, but
I agree, and I think they're probably looking at that in more so in aggregate than at specific customer levels. I mean, you'd think there would be a level of sophistication, and I know they have it or they can get to it, certainly, where they could do lots of segmenting of customers and determine that your customer type will actually perform, your optimal performance level for you may have fewer ads than an optimum performance level for a not as frequent shopper, that maybe we can monetize that shopper better with a combination of more ads and less of that person buying, right? Which in itself, that seems dangerous, but maybe as you mix it out, there are those casual customers where that could make sense. But it definitely is a balance they're going to have to continually strike. They have they've built the size of their ad business. We call it 40 billion-ish, right? That they're probably crossing through now. I think they'll finish 2023 over 40 billion in advertising. that's a ridiculous. I mean, I don't know what that would be as far as U.S. retailer ranks. Would probably put them in top, well, certainly top 10 or top 12 or so, I would guess. So 40 billion in advertising, massively profitable,
Right.
right? So you're making that kind of profit on the ad business. You can be a lot more aggressive on the core e-com business. And it can ultimately maybe help you lower prices a little bit for customers if you can strike that right balance.
Yeah.
So they're definitely addicted to the income now.
Yeah.
It's a question of just getting that balance right.
I do love the idea though that they could go in and actually say, okay, hey, listen, this guy in Connecticut, he's a really, really good customer. And by the way, he never ever buys the thing we advertise ever. So we ought to cut back on that because it's not having any, all we're doing is we're hurting the customer experience. And you're and for people who are maybe are less committed to the Amazon experience or buy less from Amazon and seem more willing to respond to advertising. That seems to me that's like the promised land in terms of advertising. Let's only
that's
people who respond to it.
Right. And that's a prototypical, that's a prototypical use case for generative AI.
Right.
Generative AI, if you get it set off in the right direction, can totally figure that out, basically on a specific customer level, real time.
All right, real quick. Let's talk about the FTC suit. I know you've read the whole thing. I'm fascinated by it. Again, you saw maybe some of the email on Morning Newsbeat. I mean, somebody said, "Oh yeah, I tried to get out and I couldn't get out. It was awful." And then the other response is, which was similar to mine, which is, "But why would you try and get out?" I mean, I have no idea how hard it is simply because I have no compulsion to leave. Right. And I don't want to screw up all my metrics because if I leave, I'm going to, I've got a lot of stuff built in there. So what is your response? What is your reaction to this suit?
Well, I mean, I go back to the ideals of the kind of initial kind of focus of Bezos in how he built and how he fostered the culture of the company early about being the full-on advocate for the customer.
Right.
And I cannot imagine that he or any of the earlier folks or any of the very senior folks at Amazon that have kind of grown up in Amazon with that philosophy, that they would be okay with designing a process that made it hard to cancel. I think they would agree that a couple of points of friction to say, "Are you sure?"
I think that's
got a really good value for you here.
Yeah.
That, I think, makes total sense.
Even if you said, "Are you aware over the past year you've saved $475?"
Yeah.
Or whatever, because it's obviously calculable.
It is, yeah. So I think that kind of friction makes sense, but I think sending a customer on a through a labyrinth, as I think they called it, through a labyrinth through trying to cancel is not, to me, just I mean, it's sad that they got to that point and that internally the team felt like that was the right way to go to drive retention. Like the best way to drive retention is to drive it through a great program that people don't want to leave. And if they want to leave, give them, don't worry about their $139. Like, let them leave, and you're going to make that up in other ways when they come back to buy more and maybe rejoin Prime. So, I don't know how long that complex process, was in existence. It sounds like they've made it. I haven't tried it, but it sounds like they've made it easier to cancel. Yeah, I don't know, and I know that so many things you do online, they do put up a whole lot of friction in how to cancel. And I've built a lot of online businesses, built a lot of e-commerce technology, and I've always gone with the philosophy that you need to make it really easy for the customer to get out. And I can't imagine you could be successful in anything if some portion of your retention is due to making it difficult for your customer to leave. Like that, to me, I just don't know how that works long term.
Yeah. it ought to be as easy. I mean, it's always funny. I probably get, I get so many emails and newsletters and things like that. Every once in a while, I'll go through and I'll say, I'm really not reading that one. It ought to be as easy as an unsubscribe button. And sometimes
Absolutely.
it's easy. You hit the unsubscribe button and you're out, right? And sometimes they want to ask you 10 questions, and those are always annoying, right? Because it's like, I want to unsubscribe because I want to unsubscribe. Don't make me go through the process. But it was interesting. There was a story. I mean, Publishers Clearinghouse they just settled a suit with the FTC for $18.5 million, which is not that much money in the scheme of things, because they had people going down these what the dark patterns, right? And deceptive design techniques. And because and so I think the FTC is serious about this, and I think they have a point.
I do, and I think what better company to make an example of in this case than Amazon? Hopefully Amazon, Amazon's going to, like, they'll have to figure out what their strategy is, right, to counter this suit, right? You can't, I don't think you can just roll over and say, yeah, you're right, but so there's probably a settlement to be reached, and
especially if they've already fixed the problem to some degree.
They've already fixed it, right? And I think, if Amazon is to come out and say, you know what, you're right, and pay some fine for that, which I can't imagine would be that exorbitant, but who knows? Amazon's a big company. But I think that, they can help the FTC set the standard and the tone,
right,
for how these things should go. And, hopefully they can turn it into a win.
Yeah.
Because I do think that they made and again, people will probably fry me for this, but, but I genuinely don't believe that the senior most team at Amazon, again, there's not an excuse because you should totally know what's going, but I can't imagine that's something that they would have condoned or would have set as an objective. Make it hard to quit. I think they would make it so it's hard to quit. Like, it'd be hard for me to give it up, quit, absolutely, but don't make it difficult for me to opt out if I want to cancel.
Yeah. Well, it all comes down to something that has been, from when we talked about it before we did the innovation conversation. In some ways, it's been the bottom line of every innovation conversation we've done, and so much of what you do and so much of what I do on Morning Newsbeat, which is, if you start with the customer, and if all your innovation is focused on what makes it better, easier, faster for the customer, you're going to be okay. But the minute you
100%.
Right, and the minute you deviate from that, you run the risk of trouble, if not legal trouble from the FTC, trouble with customers who become dissatisfied.
Well, the two subjects of today's innovation conversation, they both come down to that, right? Retail media and striking the right balance. And if you have a program, whether that's a loyalty program, whether it's a Prime, or an included shipping program, or whether it's product subscription like Subscribe and Save or Chewy's Auto Ship, or any other retailer's auto replenishment, you got to make it easy for the customer to get in and out. You should never have them feel pressured to stay in, and you should just work your butt off to provide a program that they don't want to leave.
Right.
That's what and customer centricity really is. It's hard, but it ultimately solves everything.
Yeah. And if you lose a little bit here or there, it's okay, because inevitably you'll make it up in the long term.
Yeah, absolutely will.
There you go. Good way to end. Hey, listen, have a great 4th of July weekend.
Thank you, you too. Everyone out there, you do as well. And I guess we'll do these a little bit less frequently over the summer, but we'll still be around, right?
You'll take some vacation time this summer. I'll take some vacation time this summer. We'll do this a bunch. So anyway, cool.
Sounds good.
Good seeing you. Take care.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, everyone.